However, something went wrong. Let's focus on the T-junction, because that is one that went very, very wrong.
It had a lot of interesting wrongs.
It did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, and I don't know if I've got everything, so let's move it first. Okay, I'm going to copy that and just take it into its own scene. And by having it in its own scene, it just means we can focus on it, and I don't have to worry about accidentally. You remember a couple of weeks back, I inadvertently deleted half my project without realizing it. That was a big mistake.
I do. I'm hoping you can't hear the power washing happening outside, by the way.
I mean, I can hear it, but whether or not everybody else can. So I'm just going to move this over the center of our world, like so. And then, of course, we've got the default scenes that's got a lamp and stuff in it. I'm going to get rid of these. When I'm doing game assets, I don't tend to have the lamp in the scene and everything else, because
I'll do the lighting.
Because that's the basic thing. The lighting's not being done in Blender. So my usual process for this would be, let's duplicate the collection and then hide the original collection. Nice. So we're working on the duplicate. Now, my usual workflow for this is to select one of the objects, select all of the objects, and you can't just join them together, right? If we do that, it basically destroys it, because everything inherits whatever you joined it to in terms of its modifiers and everything else. So that's not going to work. We need to go through all of these, select the one, apply the modifier, apply the modifier. Now, the workflow that I used to use for this, and again, this might be a version of Blender difference or something along those lines. I don't think it is, but I would select everything and I would convert. So if you go ahead, press F3 and go convert to mesh, what in theory should happen is all of those modifiers should be applied.
I see what you did.
Now, I can already see some Z fighting, but that should be okay, unless there was a mirror somewhere and then the mirror's been applied over the top of everything else, and then it all goes wonky. So there does appear to be something going on here with part of our mesh. So we've got this bit here. Oh, look at that. There's still some duplication or some mirroring going on. Yeah, in my mind, that should have all been solidified at this point. But that's weird, right?
It doesn't explain how normals got reversed or how materials got reassigned, but it does explain the, oh, this isn't how I expected it to behave nature.
Yeah. Well, part of the joke earlier that I was saying to Jan was, I bet when I do this live on stream, it'll work perfectly, and it'll call me a liar, as all these things do. So this isn't correct anyway because of this bit at the bottom, but we'll continue along with the process. So I'd make sure maybe the floor piece is the one that is selected as it's on the ground and ready to use. Then I'd highlight everything else and then join it together. Look at that. That's where things flipped when I joined it. And I'm like, why? What's gone on here? Now, I'm guessing that I may need to apply modifiers. Look at this. This has got a scale factor of -1. That is probably the cause of all of my misery.
Oh.
So I need to, and I'm going to, at this point in time, I'm going to go back to both of us while we discuss it. What I'm going to do is, part of the process is exporting it. So one of the things that I will naturally do is go ahead and, in fact, if I open up another Blender scene and go to the draft scene, which is where I'm popping the draft assets for Jan, I've got a script in there that, here we go, it goes through and it basically makes sure everything's in the right place, exports it, comes back in. But what none of this has done, and what I potentially could do in script, I would need to test it, but it's to make sure that all of the objects that I've got selected, or a part of a collection, all of them have a... what's the first thing we did? We made sure that everything was applied, everything was converted to a mesh.
You want to apply all the modifiers. You want to apply the transforms.
That was the thing that I did not do. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we should test this rather than just speculate. So with everything else selected, what I should be able to do now is Control and A and apply. I don't want to apply all transform. No, I don't want to apply all transforms because I will get this error. So there's another thing to do here. So,
What?
well, it's a multi-user object. In order to speed things along,
I don't know what a multi-user object is. So
the same mesh data is being used elsewhere. So there's another instance of that particular mesh. That's why when we went into edit mode here and moved this, the other one's moved because they're the same mesh. So, I mean, this is a oh, nasty. This is quite an interesting issue because part of the problem that's been caused is actually due to the workflow that I'm doing to speed things along. I've made sure I've used instances of things, and sorry I didn't have the screen sharing there because all of these arches are the same instance. So this one around the side is in fact the same mesh as this. If I'm in edit mode and I go and move something, it's nothing to do with a mirror modifier. It's actually the same bit of mesh, and because we're moving it relative to its origin, it will move elsewhere as well. Now, interestingly, that bit over here, this one, is not part of that. And we can confirm that over in the object, no, on the mesh data.
would that explain why some of the materials are different?
Yes. So these are all separate objects, as you can see.
Because that's the problem with this normal view, is that you can't see stuff like that.
No, I wasn't really focused on
totally.
On the materials.
It's an interesting byproduct of the process. Like some of the internal pillars are a different color,
which is funny. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have this here. They're all separate mesh objects, all called cylinder. Now, one of the reasons, by the way, kind of making excuses right here as to why I'm not listening to my own advice about naming. One of the reasons why is because the end goal of this is to solidify it down.
Hello, Todd. Todd Makes Games seems to have gone full Mary Poppins on us, so I appreciate that. Hello, Governor.
Top of the morning to you. Yes. No, that's Irish, rather than London.
What are you doing?
I don't know. What?
What is this? Randomized acupuncture. Can you have random randopuncture?
So all of these are separate mesh objects, but because under the mesh data, we see this as corridor arches. The mesh data is named. That's good. This is corridor arches 003. It's got 3 users, which are these other ones here. So that's why this one wasn't updating when we were shifting around all of this one. All right. So we've got a couple.
What's the advantage of multi-user objects? I mean, I understand the advantage of instancing, but once it's placed like this, what's the disadvantage of separating them?
That's what we're going to do next. So there's the advantage to begin with was just the ability to minimize Blender instead of opening up the other project.
Me.
So for instance, if we have a look, I'm hiding half this scene, aren't I? And that's the draft assets. I actually want the full assets. Let me open up those. Right. One of the advantages during construction. Okay, so during construction with this piece here, for instance, if we just focused on it and had a look at the modifiers that are applied. Oh, you want it this long. You can go ahead and make it as long as you need for the corridor that you're making and things like that. And because it's then reflected around elsewhere, it's the same mesh data being used. So if I come in and go, oh, I don't like the top of that. I really want there to be a bit of detailing here and here. I can do that, and it applies it to all of these straight away. So exactly right. But that's the benefit of a multi-user object. This tiny bit of mesh at the end is driving everything else, which is it makes it quicker to do something multiple times. And because we're not forcing geometry into one another, it works incredibly well. Now, if I open up the right blend file, so that's one of the problems that we got here. These are multi-mesh, multi-user objects. So we can't just apply the transforms. We need to make them unique first. I think that's the terminology. So under edit, under relations, make single user object and its data. Now the question is, has that applied it to every single one? I think it has. Then I believe if we go ahead and apply our transforms, bearing in mind the reason why transforms need to be applied is because if I join things, we end up with all of the transforms actually being applied at that point and things inverting.
Oh, is it because you selected it? It's like the back wall just went orange.
Yep. I was just demonstrating what happens if we don't
Gotcha.
apply our transforms. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't suggest doing all transforms because that can shift things, but I'm just going to do it at the moment. Look at that. That's put this the wrong way. Oh, is applying the transforms going to cause us an issue? That's interesting. That's actually causing the issue. It is the applying of transforms. Oh my. That's got to be something that I've got to work out, because looking at this piece here, there's no way of telling apart from the fact that it's got the transform on it.
Well, here's a question for you. Right now, that back wall has 2 planes. We don't need 2 planes, so why don't we just get rid of the offending one?
It doesn't have 2 planes. It has just the one.
Well, when I imported this into Godot, it had 2 planes in the same place facing 2 different directions.
I don't know what to say. I probably made a big boo-boo when editing. Sending it through to you.
No, I'm not. Like,
yeah, there's definitely one plane there. Well, let's go through and just isolate the planes.
Because a plane with 2 sides with 2 materials is not a plane.
That one's just a plane, and that one. Yeah, there's just the 4 planes there. I don't know why an extra one came through. It is possible. At one point, I was having issues with the planes. You know, I was mentioning earlier about I was selecting things by top down. I was selecting things and it was missing things. It was missing things like the plane. And therefore, I had to drag extra ones in. I wonder whether I accidentally dragged, the wrong thing in.
I don't think it was that, just because it was in exactly the same place and exactly the same size. I mean, maybe. But...
It would have been exactly the same place and size. I